Libra Heart. Oh, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. A better time. But no time to reminisce because the future awaits us with Libra Heart's newest title. Huh? Libra Heart didn't make this? Then who the heck did? Well, I'll be damned, a new player in the gameplay Eroge sphere, and with art from Libra Heart to boot, well, let's roll out the red carpet for Circle Pixel-teishoku and their title, Castle in the Clouds. Let's get started. This feels right. Been a hot minute since I covered an Eroge title, and FYI, that's your warning going forward. This is an adult title with plenty of plot to be traversed, but that doesn't mean it's lacking in gameplay either. It's a very old school feeling platformer, with plenty of design decisions meant to invoke nostalgia for a time long gone, like a whip wielding protagonist, enemies that respawn the second the screen moves off of them, and even the good old stairway to the final boss. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's focus back onto that plot, shall we? The game opens up with a bit of lore told in a font just barely more recognizable than hieroglyphics. Like, as much as I like modern interpretations of old school graphics, pixel font is something I can do without. Our busty beauty in the main character seat is the bounty hunter Lily, currently chasing down a target that she is sure had fled to a nearby town. And this will be the first and last time you hear me mention that, because the second the game actually starts, that plot point is quickly dropped. Lily enters a dangerous looking forest as a shortcut to the town, but gets stopped by a very healthy looking bandit boss who demands a toll to pass through. No. Oh crap, she actually said no, time to bail! Next time, candidate. As anyone who knows the artist would expect, Libra Heart's art style once again pulls off the pixel look of old school titles while still providing plenty of sprite-based fanservice.
Hamburger should be high.
Environments are pretty varied, going from forests to haunted houses to underwater caverns and even a nighttime desert. Paired with these environments are some moderately catchy retro tunes. And there's one for each stage of the game, with no repeats aside from a universal boss track. Nothing really stood out to me as the best song in the game, but all the tracks are pretty serviceable. Anyways, going back to the story, halfway through the first level, Lily gets ambushed by a gang of enemies, resulting in exactly what you'd expect from an Eroge. After that ordeal, Lily is rescued by a stereotypical rich fat bastard, allowing the player to explore the town, which functions as the game's hub world. The town itself isn't all that special, and the various shop menus are pretty bog standard, dear god that font, but at the very least they are more visually appealing than the game's pause menu. On the other hand, they can't do this. So pause menu 1, shop menu 0. Lily eventually figures out that the fat bastard basically runs the town, so she goes to him for work, and as Eroge logic dictates, he's going to want something in return. Surprisingly, he doesn't demand sex from her, instead going for the traditional anime greeting, though obviously not in a PG-13 way. This gives Lily access to the guild, and the ability to take quests, starting with some well-deserved payback on the bandits who attacked her. Repeating the stage this time leads to a ends with a pretty decent boss battle against a horde of bandits, followed by a 1v1 with the bandit boss herself. Defeating her results in the bandit boss being betrayed and screwed over by her own men, literally. And Lily unlocks running. Not that she really needs it, her walk speed is pretty fast to begin with, but I'm not going to say no to more animations. That pretty much sums up the story, and I don't mean that in the that's the base premise of the game sense. No, that's pretty much where the narrative portion of the game ends. The whole setup of some story dialogue at the start of a stage, the heroine getting caught in a sexy situation in the middle and ending with a fun boss and an 8 scene, only happens in the introductory stage, which is doubly weird because you don't even have to do this stage immediately after unlocking the guild. Realizing that was a little disappointing, something I'll go into more in depth in gameplay, but it didn't hurt the experience too much. Okay, now we can get into the meat of the game, because that's what this is, a game, not a visual novel, not a book with game-like elements,
not that there's anything wrong with that,
but a full-fledged platformer, with some sexy elements. Lily starts out the game with one of two weapons, a sword or the classic whip. Obviously for the occasion I chose the whip, but there are a few other weapons you can buy from the shop. I do have a minor complaint about the movement though. Something that I had to get used to was how jumping worked. When you neutral jump, you have full air control, and by that I mean you can fall as far forward or backwards you want. But when you jump in a direction, you have a predetermined distance you move unless you press the opposite button in which you regain full air control. Which means for a precise short jump, instead of simply jumping forward and letting go to fall onto the targeted spot, you have to leap forward before yanking Lily back like she's an unfortunate cartoon character in a porn parody. But admittedly, that's a nitpick, and after getting used to it, I was jumping and shooting my way through entire stages. Like I said earlier, there are plenty of varied environments to explore as you unlock them via the guild, and they all did feel unique with different gameplay elements. I was disappointed though that there weren't any stage puzzles or difficult platforming moments in the game, you know, things that make a stage memorable. My favorite was probably the ghost ship, which was pretty big with a lot of different mobility elements to it and hidden things to find. On that note, secrets and locked away items are really what makes each stage fun to traverse. There are plenty of chests scattered across each stage and a handful of artifacts to collect that give Lily different abilities. These power-ups provide Lily a bunch of cool effects, some more combat oriented like seeing the amount of damage she deals to an enemy, while others help her traverse the environment like wall climbing. Kinda makes Lily come across more as a treasure hunter, not a bounty hunter, but with moves like that, I can't complain. I do have to note, collecting most of these will make Lily pretty overpowered. Like, there's one item that makes you not take damages from spike. Not take damages? What is this, a legal claim? Like, there's one item that makes you not take damage from spikes as long as you can get away from them fast enough, and once you're far enough into the game, you can stumble onto a particular combination of items that, well... The game overall is about as easy as you make it, with the exception of a few bosses that did provide a bit of a challenge, until I got stronger weapons, but they were pretty fun and well designed, both in the gameplay sense as well as the visual sense. Especially one particular boss that just has the best design an Eroge platformer could provide.
Wait a minute!
Yes, a boss whose wide tracts of land are used as a platform to attack her from. 10 out of 10. But that does lead to one particular issue. With the angle she is leaning and the fact that they are bouncing like they are hanging rather than being perched on something, how does Lily even stand on it? No, the issue, funny enough, is the game has a lot of pixel perfect babes, but doesn't do a lot with them. I mean, the boss designs are plenty sexy, but once you beat them, they just die, unlike the first boss who has a defeat related Hscene that caps off the stage. On that note, let's talk Hscenes, because I was actually surprised with how many stereotypical H elements were avoided in this game. Like when an NPC tells me to crouch in front of him to unlock a secret, I immediately rolled my eyes and did it, only to see. Now normally I would praise a game for focusing more on gameplay than making porn with extra steps, but here I did feel a bit put out by how many missed opportunities there were, especially with how beautifully animated the Hscenes are. I mean, these are Libra Heart's calling card, and yet while there are a few exceptions, they kinda feel like an afterthought here. Like how, as with many games in this genre, this one does allow Lily to become a Lady of the Night after you play around with a couple of monsters. If by Lady of the Night you mean in broad daylight, and with like only 4 people in the game. In terms of gameplay content, I do appreciate that there aren't any game over scenes that you have to intentionally lose in order to see, so it skipped that trope, but it does have the floating heart enemies that start an Hscene when touched. Only a couple of enemy types have this though, and as far as gameplay effects, there's not much to it. No health drain, no health gain, no nothing. And at the end of it, Lily does do damage to all the enemies on the map, for video game reasons, so that's kinda cool. Feels kinda like a get off move you'd see in a beat 'em up, but it does shit damage. That kinda sucks because there's a glimmer of gameplay in this, in the form of a succubus that comes out of a chest and curses Lily to finish herself off, so to speak. And you can delay this by moving around, turning yourself into a makeshift bomb. But what's the point? I dragged Lily's horny ass all the way from one of the traps to the boss room and 20 damage. To the game's credit though, this means that there aren't that many 8-scene stopgaps that kill the momentum of a level, something that most games that include adult content in them have to deal with. And the couple of scenes that do happen fairly quickly and give the player full control of when they end, allowing you to watch a scene for however long you need before getting back into the action.
Swan dive.
Whew, landed here pretty quickly compared to some of my other reviews, but for the length of the title, it is to be expected. Castle in the Clouds was a pretty fun game, and a nice refresher for a small Eroge title, something I hadn't experienced in quite some time now. I had a lot of fun exploring the large stages, whipping all the enemies I come across, while finding all sorts of different power-ups. Doing that with a busty bouncy protagonist and busty bouncy bosses was just icing on the cake for me. I know it sounds like I was shitting on the adult content, but really I just wanted more of Libra Heart's work. It's really good, and while all the characters in the game are drawn beautifully, only having 11 CG animations is not enough to satisfy my thirst, but it's a small game, so that makes sense. It doesn't take all that long to beat or even 100% as long as you are thorough going through each stage, but there are a decent amount of stages to play, so it's got a few hours of game in there. And the gameplay itself is quite solid, which to me makes up for it lacking in a narrative experience much like the titles of old that it's emulating. I don't have much else to say, so my final verdict on Castle in the Clouds by Circle Pixel-teishoku for the price of around $13 is a solid buy. This is a game for someone who just wants a fun little experience, a fun little sexy experience, so it won't be something for hardcore gamers. But for that price, I think it's worth it. I mean, if I'm being honest, this video was supposed to be a spotlight, but I ended up beating the game. And I liked it so much that I decided it was worth the effort of a full review. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, maybe check out my Subscribe Star or Patreon if you want to support more fan servicey reviews, and I'll see you guys next time. Matane.